everyone, it's Miss Cary, and I'm going to talk to you about the chromatic scale, and we're going to listen to what it sounds like. But first, I have to give a little background on where do we get all this stuff? Who invented this musical system? The answer is a little bit of it was discovered, and then it's the humans that organized it and made what we call music, human music. But a lot of it exists in nature, and I think that's important to stress because that means human beings are equipped with the senses to pick up on these combinations and what is resonant and why things work the way they do in music to produce tension and resolution. So if you think back to 5th grade science, science of sound, let's look at the harmonic series really quick. If you have a fixed string that's a nail, here let's see, it's a board and nails in it, and the string is tied, it's tied tight, it's fixed. The string is not changing in any way due to temperature or anything. It's going to stay the same mass. So when we pull it, the first vibration it's going to do is the whole length of the string, and then it'll come down and it'll do a whole big wave. And the sound that makes, that's the lowest sound this string can make, or this vibrating body, and that's called the fundamental. Now, as that string slows down, it starts to whip on itself at exactly the halfway point. So that's physics. This is math. And half of the wavelength makes a sound twice as high, and that's a higher octave. So the first vibration is the fundamental. The whole thing, 100% of it is vibrating. When half of it's vibrating, it's called the octave. It's an octave. That's the distance between the two notes. It's also the first harmonic. So these are literal reverberations of a sound, like ghost sounds. When you go, the next one, it divides into thirds, and the sound that's produced, that'd be the second harmonic, is a fifth, 5 notes higher. So I just find that fascinating that it doesn't ring out linearly. It rings out like a mandala or something, like rings in a pool. It jumps out. So let me show you on the guitar real quick. So I'm gonna play, it's kind of hard to see, the lowest string, and I'm not touching it with, I won't touch anything with this hand. Just let it ring whatever its fundamental is. Now if I lightly touch it, literally halfway, you can't hear it, but it's the octave that'll ring out. I just gave it a little boost, and you hear the same note twice as fast which produces an octave. So if the lower note is an E, the first harmonic is a high E. So it's going to be the same letter note for the harmonic. So I just wanted to really quickly, oh wait, let me show you on the flute, because this isn't a fixed string, but it's a fixed column of air. So if I just let it be its lowest fundamental, if I really disturb it and make that wave whip once, I'll do one more. Hold your ears. If I really overblow, it'll do the fifth higher. Not touching anything, it's all science. Did you hear it a little bit? It is in there. I didn't want to disturb the neighbors. All right, so that's where we get the octave. Now I'm going to draw it on the musical staff, those two notes, the low note and the high note. So this is my musical staff. I'm going to put a treble clef at the beginning so we know that we're dealing with the higher notes on the musical spectrum. If we're thinking about the piano, middle C and higher. The clef designates one note and says this is this note, and then we can arrange the notes based on that point. So this rolls around the G line and says this line is going to be G. So let's put our two E's on there, the octaves. So if this is G, the line, the space is F, and then down here is an E. And the high E is up here. So we're going to divide that octave into 13 notes, including the note on top. So the piano, it's every single note on the piano within the octave. So every note that's touching. Now the piano isn't uniform, equally spaced all the way up. There are some half steps and there's some whole steps. So when they divided it into the 13 steps, these are half steps. So we write it like this. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, I did it, kinda, E. Now I'll go ahead and do this. E, F, sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So you'll see there's no B sharp. And that's because there's not a black key between B and C. Where's the other spot like that? Between E and F. All right, so these are our 13 notes, and they will be equally that much higher than the one before it. 13 half steps. On the guitar, it's each fret is a half step. That's a chromatic scale. So do I only use sharps? Why don't I use flats? Because sharps are when you are going up. If I were writing the chromatic scale coming down, I would use flats. Just to remind you, sharps raise a note a half step, and flats lower the note a half step. Natural puts it back where it was in the first place. All right, so let's listen to some chromatic scales on the piano. All right, let's listen to some chromaticism on the piano, chromatic movement. So we'll take an octave and then play all the notes on the piano within that octave. Let's do the E. Every half step sounds like this. Going back down. All right, let's listen to one in the higher register. Movement by half steps. Now, chromatic movement can be just for a few notes, or it can go on and on and on, like climbing up to the tippity top of the mountain peak. Or creeping down the stairs. So let's listen to the octave and the unison. These intervals are considered perfect because you don't have a major octave and a minor octave. You just have one octave and you have one unison. It's perfect. So the unison means the same note, the exact same note. You have to have two of them that you can either have it sung in succession or played in succession, or at the same time. If there were two instruments, I just have one instrument with me right now, but a unison sounds like this. And you can imagine two pianos playing the same note together. Well, you know what? I can sing one. So that's called a harmonic unison when you have two of them played at the same time. An octave sounds the closest, I think, to a unison. If ever I get a unison wrong, it's an octave, and I think it's a unison. An octave is the same note at the top of the scale, like a low C and a high C. The reason they sound so much the same is that their frequency is exactly doubled. It's exactly twice as high. So they are very consonant together. They fit really so well together you almost think it's the same note. So they're deceptively difficult sometimes. So don't feel bad if you're like, I can't even hear a unison. If you practice it and work with the teoria drills, you can overcome that for sure. You can improve your ear. You will improve your ear by the end of this course if you do all your work. So listen to some unisons. Here's one. Here's an octave. Unison, low. Here's a high one. Two more octaves. Here's one. And last octave to listen to. Can you recognize these sounds, do you think? Now there's a little song that goes along with the intervals. Well, it's not much of a song. It helps to sing the pitches and have your body remember it. It helps you remember it. Because when your ears and your body feels the vibrations and you've already sung it, you can recognize it better. Believe me, that is so true. So the unison, you sing. Let's see, let's call this is an E. E, E, perfect unison. So practice some of that. G, 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 perfect unison. Try some of those with your instrument. Here's an octave. D, D, perfect octave. That's too high for me. That's an E. E, E, perfect octave. If you sing it, you hear it, it might just jolt your memory and you think, F, F, perfect octave, and you'll get it right on the quiz. So don't skip the singing part. Teach your body what these sounds really sound like. All right, good practice. All right, let's test your listening skills. Listen to the following example and hear whether it is chromatic movement or not chromatic movement. Here's your first example. One more time. Chromatic or not chromatic? Not chromatic. That was a D major scale, which is not chromatic. Chromatic scales are all half steps. Try another one. Listen again. Chromatic or not chromatic? Not chromatic. That was a pentatonic scale with big leaps in between some of the notes. So no half steps at all. Let's do another one. more time. Chromatic or not chromatic? Chromatic. Good listening, everybody. Good practicing. Perfect unison or perfect octave. Here's your first example. Again. What's your answer? Perfect unison. Try another one. Unison or octave? Perfect octave. Couple more of these. One more time. And that one is a perfect unison. One more. Perfect unison or perfect octave. That's a perfect octave. Good ears.